Okay, we are live. Howdy, folks. Welcome to the essay webinar, all things related to all of your essays. Those of you, we have some of you who came to our first webinar. We're excited to have you back. If you're a returner, if you're new to physical therapy application coach, we're also super excited to have you here. And we want to make sure you guys have an opportunity to get your questions answered about your essays, that you're able to learn about what makes essays awesome. And you're also able to learn about us and our team and the things that we do to help applicants get into physical therapy school the first time, or if they're a reapplicant, to make sure that they definitely get in this time to physical therapy school. And it's crazy to think that we're already a month in to the application being open. Like today, it's been a month that PTCAS has been open. And we've helped a lot of applicants go ahead and already submit their application, which is great. And we also know there's a lot of applicants who are like starting to panic a little bit because we're into the application, but they don't have their essays done. And so we want to make sure that if you're falling into that second group, that you don't need to panic, that there's always still time that we can make this work, and we can go from there. Hello, everybody. So excited to have you here. Go ahead and type in the chat box. Those of you, we already got some chatters that are on point. Thanks, Hannah, for starting us off here. Go ahead and type in the chat where you're viewing from and just where you're watching the webinar from right now. And then I'm also going to I'll put those at the end. I'll put some contact info there at the end. But I am viewing from Florence, Arizona. And Jenna, where are you currently?
I am Mount Pleasant, Michigan.
Nice. Beautiful. Got Lynchburg, Virginia. Texas is representing right now. We got a bunch of Texas folks. Miami, more Texas, Chicago. Hey, we got a couple from Lynchburg. I wonder, Stephanie and Hannah, do you guys know each other? I'm assuming. Vegas, Phoenix. Awesome. California, Maryland. Great. So this is what we love to see. We love to see people from all over. Looks like we mostly got the coasts. Kind of just East Coast, West Coast, a little bit. Arizona. Yes, let's go. Okay. Hannah and Stephanie, you know each other. Great. That's awesome. I figured probably if you are both in Lynchburg and you are both on this webinar, chances are you probably know each other. Awesome. But we're super excited to have you all here today. And we've got new content for those of you who watched our first one. So there's going to be some new stuff. If you're here for the first time, you're going to get blasted with information, lots of good stuff to help you. And if you're a returner, we're going to also make sure that you're getting good value. So without further ado, let's jump in. Okay, some housekeeping items. If the video freezes, don't panic. Just let us know in the chat box. A recording will be sent out an hour or so after the presentation is completed, and you'll get several emails reminding you to watch the replay. The replay is going to be good, I believe, for the next 3 to 5 days. So we want you to watch the replay while it's fresh in your mind, so please make sure you watch it. And then we also are going to have some opportunities once we kind of, over the next couple weeks, we do some editing. We'll get it out on our YouTube channel as well. But watch the replay while it's fresh so that way you can start implementing it as soon as possible. And you're going to get a lot more out of today if you are engaged and you have notes or a blank document open on your computer, or you're just ready to take down the things that we're sharing with you and implement them into your own personal application experience and journey. Okay. So if you have questions, feel free to enter them at the chat box at any time. Because we've added more content today, we want to make sure we get through everything. If it fits for us to talk about those questions, we'll go ahead and answer them in the moment. But if it's something that we'll just say, you know what, we're going to table that and we'll address them at the end, we will answer all of your questions at the end. So don't freak out. If you think of something and you want to write it down, just put it in the chat box and we'll go back and we'll review it. And the runtime for the webinar is going to be approximately an hour, probably going to be a little bit over an hour with the new stuff that we've added. Okay. All right. A little bit about us. This slide's been updated. Main thing that's important in this picture of my family is outdated now because we have another little girl that's joined our family. Her name is Gemma, and not to be confused with Jenna, who is right above me right here. So whenever I say I have a meeting with Jenna, I keep mixing them up. So anyways, love all three of my daughters. They're awesome. My wife is fantastic and super supportive. They love the opportunity I have to serve the pre-PT community, and they want to make sure that we're able to reach out and to benefit you guys. So just a quick run through. I attended my undergraduate university training at Brigham Young University in Provo, and was the pre-PT club president there. And that's where I got my feet wet with a lot of coaching, and started to see that I was actually pretty good at helping people get into physical therapy school. And then I took myself to Northern Arizona University's DPT program, their Phoenix campus, Go Lumberjacks. Loved my time in Phoenix, and then went to Vegas to work for ATI Physical Therapy, and then transferred back to Arizona. And that's where I am now, still working with ATI. And like I mentioned before, I've been coaching applicants for the last decade. While I was at NAU, I was reviewing application essays and helped perform interviews for 17 incoming applicants, and learned a ton from that experience. And over the past 10 years, I've performed almost 1,300 application essay edits, which is kind of crazy to think, and almost 400 mock interviews. Clients that we've been working with have been accepted to 171 of the 300 DPT programs across the country, and that number continues to grow and will continue to grow this cycle as we have applicants from new areas of the country applying to new schools. So we're excited to continue to grow that number. And I personally was accepted to 5 of the 6 highly competitive DPT programs that I applied to. And like I said, I chose NAU. So that's a little bit about me. And now let's kick it to Jenna to share about herself.
Hi, a little bit about me. I got my bachelor's in professional writing and English from Michigan State University, and recently graduated with my master's in creative writing from Central Michigan University. I really did a focus of editing and publishing, and worked as a graduate assistant at CMU's Writing Center for 2 years, where I helped students edit their papers and feel more confident in their writing, which is what I'm here to do for you guys. I also worked as a copy editor for CMU's literary magazine Central Review for 2 years, and wrote and edited blog posts for that magazine as well. I have a passion for writing and helping others, and that's why I'm here, to make you guys feel more confident in your work and get it to that perfect personal essay as we can. My family, as you can see, is my world. I have 2 sisters. One of them is my twin, and an older sister. My twin is actually in her 3rd year of her DPT program at Central Michigan University, so she'll be going on clinicals. And my older sister is a nurse and is getting her registered nurse practitioner's degree. My mom and dad are always supportive of me and my passion. With 2 sisters in the medical field and me being the kind of creative writer, they are always supportive of me and my dreams. And then a little fun fact, as you can see, I have 2 cats, Fred and George. Yes, they're named after the 2 twins from Harry Potter. I'm also a little Harry Potter nerd. So that is about me. I'm so excited to work with you guys, and hopefully this information can help you guys feel more confident in your essays.
Awesome.
Oh, and that's so cool, Ethan. Nice twin action there.
Yeah, seriously. That's small world. More small world in this webinar right now. Okay, thank you so much. And for those of you, you've probably seen or heard about Jenna. She's been working with our team since, what was that, December, January?
Yeah.
She has been working with us on our marketing front. So she's made a huge improvement to our marketing efforts on Instagram. So shout out to her about that. And then she also is our main essay editing coach for PTCAS essays. I primarily am still navigating the supplemental essays just because there's a little bit more nuance to those. But she does a fantastic job with helping out all of our applicants with their PTCAS essays. And she's doing a great job. So thank you, Jenna, for introducing yourself. Our goals for today are to give you some concrete direction to help you tackle your PTCAS and your supplemental application essays quickly and efficiently. We also are going to be sharing with you an exclusive limited time offer to work with us this application cycle on your application essays. And those are the main things that we are here for today. We want to hear from you guys. What brings you on a Saturday morning or early afternoon to come and watch a webinar about application essays of all things, which kind of a giveaway, you're applying to PG school, but more specifically, what has you anxious or hesitant about writing your essays and makes you want to be empowered to learn more. Go ahead and type in the chat. Jenna, just as we've been working through, what do you feel like are some of the main things that applicants are approaching you about when they're in the calls, like some of the reservations they have about their essays?
A lot of them want to make them unique. They want to make them different from what everybody else is sending in. And people are worried that their strengths or their stories are too similar to other applicants. And so they come in asking, like, what can they do to stand out? And what my answer for that is always just like telling your story, because your story is always going to be different from someone else's. You and someone else most likely do not have the same story. So that's what we will do during those sessions. We'll talk about your story and make it unique to you. So focusing it on you, which is also something that people like have a problem with writing about themselves, which I get it. I've been there, but this is the one time in life that it's a way to kind of brag about yourself and about how strong you are and what makes you the great PT and why you should be accepted.
For sure. Thank you, Jennifer, for giving us that intro. I think just looking at a lot of the sentiments that those who are watching are echoing the same things. They're not sure what DPT programs are looking for, how to structure their essay, how to stand out versus just writing something that everybody is writing, making your essays, improving their essays for Hannah. Let's see, a read-worthy hook. That's a good thing to learn about. How do you grab your reader's attention quickly? And things they're looking for, having too many stories that fit my personal statement and not knowing how to link them. Ooh, that's a good one as well. Finding answers to the personal statement and making sure to not repeat myself with supplemental questions. That's super good as well, Macy. How can you differentiate? And the character count, very small first. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. Guys, you are in the right place. This is what we're going to talk about today, but we're going to hit basically every single one of those.
So we have the new 2023-2024 PTCAS essay prompt. So the prompt is, every person has a background, an identity, interest, or talents which they feel their application would be incomplete without having mentioned. Describe those traits or experiences that make you unique and explain how they will help you be a successful physical therapist. And we here at love this prompt because this is pretty much what Sean has been doing for the last decade. And what I've learned when I started here. So it's very exciting because we're all about storytelling and showing your strengths and showing the unique side of you. So what do you guys think about this essay? Were you excited to see this prompt, or did you feel like thrown off? Because, I mean, most prompts are probably asking you like, why PT, or why do you want to be a PT? So this one's a little different. It's kind of asking like, what parts of you make you a good PT?
Right. And I think as you guys are typing in the chat there, like what you think about the prompt, again, like when I read this, I just started laughing because this is basically the prompt behind the prompt. Every year, like we have old posts where we've looked at all the previous prompts, and at the end of the day, they're asking you to answer this question. They have the wordings a little different, but ultimately that's what programs want to know is like, what are you bringing to the profession, to this program? And why is that going to be something that's going to make you stand out or make a difference? And can you tell that story effectively? Let's see here. Hannah, I love this prompt because it's much better than the last one. Absolutely. The last one was horrible. I'm glad we can forget about it and move on. Let's see here. Ethan, I like how it's being a little bit more direct and then what they're looking for this year. Yes. Absolutely, Ethan. The last one, they told you this is what we don't want you to talk about, but they didn't say what they did want you to talk about. And that's what this prompt is all about. It's very specific, very direct. Talk about these things and then go from there. Let's see here. Kadiana. So how long should the essay be? 4,500 characters, including spaces. Okay, characters, not words. We're going to go into that in a lot more detail. I like the prompt. It's more straightforward. Yep, definitely better than last prompt. Okay. Clear direction. Perfect. All right. Everybody is on board and we're all in unison that this is much better than the last prompt. Okay. So oh wait, we're doing this one. Yes. This is the new slide.
Yes. So working with some of you so far, we kind of wanted to bring up some common mistakes that people are making, which is no big deal. It's the first draft. That's the first thing we want to make clear. Don't get glued to your first draft, because changes are going to be made, and that's okay. And don't be glued to the first stories you tell, because we're going to pull out a little bit more from you, and you're going to realize, like, oh, wait, maybe this can show this strength better. So here are a few common mistakes that we've seen. So, and we'll go, someone already brought this up, telling and talking instead of showing and telling. So your stories, you want to show your strengths through that story. So like if your strength is perseverance, how did you persevere? Show us those details, show us that experience. And then when you get to a summary, you can tell to make it more clear of what that strength was. Another thing was only focusing on one story or experience. So only focusing on one story or experience. So for that, you dive deep into that personal story, but then you have no kind of leeway, because the character count is so limited, you have no leeway to go deeper into a client-based story to show how you've worked in the PT area. So make sure that you kind of leave space for at least 2 stories in your essay. And the strengths can be similar or they can be different, but 2 stories to like back all those strengths up is better than one major story.
I think going along with that, Jenna, what we found in our experience is some applicants, they feel like overwhelmed. And so they only want to write about one story, but then they share like too many details. And it's almost, you lose your reader, because we lose the essence of what's important in this story. And then on the reverse of that, and this is, we include some of this as well, they're sharing too many ideas or too many stories, kind of the flip side of that, where you have applicants that are like, I just want to word vomit my whole resume into the PTCAS essay. And remember that like those other experiences are in your application under the experiences section. So we want to give more focus to some specific experiences that aren't currently talked about in your application, or that you can talk about in more detail. And so as we've been going through this for the past decade, the thing that works the best so far is 2 stories. One to kind of help us get to know who you are as an individual, and then one to help us kind of see you in the light of like, how do you work with patients? And this is more specifically related to your PTCAS essay, but it's also true for your supplemental application essays as well. Let's see here. I'll do the next 2, and then we'll let you finish up with the last bullet. So writing about how other people are awesome instead of yourself. Okay, this is extremely common. Applicants are they write a story, and maybe they had a story about how they got injured, and then they went to PT, and they write about how awesome the PT was that worked with them. Guess what? That physical therapist has already gotten into PT school. It's not that we don't care about them, but this essay is about you. This is about what you're bringing to the table. And other times, if you do share a patient interaction story, applicants will write about, oh, well, this patient was so strong and they persevered through all these challenges. That's great, but that patient's not trying to get into PT school. Okay. So as we're going through and we're talking about some of these mistakes, I hope some of you're starting to get some alarm bells going off in your head, like, oh shoot, maybe I was writing about this. Another one, I call it the pre-PT travelogue. And this one drives me nuts, mostly because it's just boring to read. Okay. I'll be honest with you. So this will be, I did a video about this earlier this week, but a pre-PT travelogue is like, well, my freshman year, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. Then my sophomore year, I thought I wanted to go to med school. And then my junior year, I was like, maybe I'll go to nursing school. And then my senior year, I was like, I guess I'll do PT. Like, that is not what we want your essay to be about, because it should be a given. If you're applying to PT school, you want to do this. We don't need to talk about how you finally arrived at that decision. Ultimately, we should be talking about what you're bringing to the table and what a program is going to get when they pick you to come to their program. What are the strengths, the attributes, the different things like that you're bringing? Jenna, go ahead and bring us on home with that last point there.
Yeah. So the last one, writing about your own injury experience, just like everybody else. So this is a very common topic that people bring up because they think that, oh, this can connect me with PT, and this was the reason I wanted to go into it, kind of like what Sean was touching on. But again, that's not where we want to go, because you're going to have a section where you talk about how you work with clients and your PT kind of experience, or like working in that field. So the injury story is something that's kind of just been like overused at this point, and so common that it doesn't really show you. Like, it shows you've been injured and you went to PT, but like, and of course through the injury you can learn so much stuff, but I feel there's deeper down in your life, there can be a story that's stronger and more about you and more about your experiences and yourself that can outshine a simple injury that you might have went through in the past.
For sure. Yeah, I think, and guys, as we're listing these off, if you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I've been writing about this, like, go ahead and type in the chat box. If you haven't, great. You've been listening to us on social media and you've been following some of these principles. But writing about injuries, yes, it's not to say that it's not a transformative experience for you, but what we're looking for is we want to make sure that this is an experience that showcases your strengths. And again, it can, like, it's not to say that we haven't included stories like this in essays before. We definitely have, but usually we say, okay, let's go through all of your experiences. And then we need to make sure we look at the ones that are the most impactful or meaningful to you. If that injury recovery, like one that's sticking out in my mind was with an applicant who had a major car accident that completely derailed her academic career and her professional career and different things like that. And she saw a change from that. And I said, you know what, this is a really compelling story. You can demonstrate a lot of strengths in this. So you still can use it, but don't just talk about, oh, I tore my ACL and then I went to PT and I thought it was really cool, so I decided to become PT. It's overdone. It's lame. Nobody cares. And so let's make you stand out as far as that goes. Mm-hmm. Now, this other bullet point that we have down here, or emphasized point, on average, we only keep approximately 10 to 15% of any first draft that we get. Okay. So we don't want you to be glued to your first draft, because a lot of times applicants are like, I've spent a lot of time on this draft. Even if they know it's not good, like deep down, they'll meet with us and they'll be like, yeah, I'm really glad that you told me these things, because I was not excited about this draft. I didn't feel like it was really talking about what I wanted to talk about. So just know, even if you've worked really hard on a draft, most of the time we only keep a small percentage of it, because there's a better way to talk about yourself. And that's the process we're going to share with you. Mm-hmm. Okay, so how important are your application essays? So I'll run through this quickly. This may very well be the most important essay you have ever written, but you've never likely been trained in school on how to do it. Jenna has been in creative writing classes for years, right? And even this structure and this format that we use, it's different, it's unique, and it's something that it kind of goes beyond academics, and it goes back to being able to tell effective stories and be a good salesperson of yourself. In addition to that, the 2020 to 2022 application cycles were really transformational for us, because we saw so many applicants that their essay was what made all the difference in their application. Okay. So especially during 2020, there were a lot of applicants who got into PT school because the applicant pool shrunk. There was a lot of people who were not sure what was going to go on because of COVID, or their application plans got derailed. And so we had a bunch of applicants come to us who were maybe lower with their GPA or their GRE scores than when we were like, hey, this is the best year that you probably have a shot to get into PT school. And we had to do everything we could to make them stand out. And time again, as we go back over these last 3 application cycles, we have found consistently that people are getting into PT school because of the application essays that we help them write. They talk about them in their interviews. They talk about them when they get accepted into that program. And it's just great positive feedback for us to know that we're hitting all the right buttons and pulling all the right levers to get these applicants in. Okay, this is another one, neuroscience. Okay, I'm going to go through this a little quickly because it's kind of a nerdy slide. There is a researcher, his name is Dr. Yuri Hassan. He's a neuroscience researcher at Princeton, and he studies how stories affect our brains. And research argues, and it's been found consistently, that stories are the most effective way to get someone to be on the same page as you. brain activity of the person who's telling the story and the person listening to or reading the story actually becomes in sync, which is crazy when you look at the brainwave activity. So as you're vibing together, if you will, the brainwaves are working together. That person starts to believe that the story that you're telling them is legit. There's evidence, there's something compelling about what you're sharing with them, and they're willing to buy in and to listen to what you have to say. Now, I want you to think about your favorite books, movies, commercials, or if you have a friend that's always has a good story to tell, think about what is included in their stories. Okay, the anatomy of what makes up a good story. You need a hero or someone to root for, a conflict that gets brought up. There's character development or showcasing of strengths or people growing. And then there's some type of a meaningful resolution. Doesn't mean it has to be happily ever after. Whatever the resolution was, as long as we get to a point where we see that the character's journey that they went on meant something. And another thing to think about, Jesus Christ, so I'm a Christian, and other transformative teachers like him often taught using stories and parables to help people remember the principles that they would teach. And as a result of that, those things stuck with the people. They may have had to think about it, but they would remember the story because of how it was taught to them and how it was presented. So stories are crucial.
So now these are kind of some raw materials that make up a great application essay. Like we said, stories that showcase your strengths, and to those stories, be authentic. Don't hold anything back. Use imagery to pull in your reader and kind of hit them with some emotion, like make them feel what you're feeling or what you are going through. And with those, you can hook your reader early. You're right away for this essay, you want to start with that story. You don't really need the introduction or anything. If you start with the story, you're going to grab the reader right away because they got to know what's being talked about. And so they have to read further to learn what this first sentence was about. Like, for instance, someone I worked with talked about, like, I never thought it would happen this day. It wasn't supposed to happen. And I was drawn. I was like, oh, what happened? What are you talking about? And it went on to discuss a horrible medical thing that went on with the family, but they had to step up, and it was beautiful. So, and that comes into the show Don't Tell again. So they showed their emotions, they showed what they went through, and all those strengths that they got to learn and strengthen through that experience. But saying that, you also want to be a victor, not a victim. So making sure that you stand out in the end, and that you don't want to, again, like the injury, you don't want to put too much emphasis on you going through something that's like too heartening, but make sure at the very end you come up on top, and don't say that you are still trying, but like make yourself that hero, that one who really, really stood out.
For sure. I think along with that point there, Jenna, it's important to look at just making sure that you keep a relatively optimistic and upbeat tone to your essay. There are applicants who can kind of get into this, like, I hate to call it like a crybaby phase of like, woe is me, look at all my problems. And it's just not an effective way to sell your story. There are a lot of applicants who've gone through some horrible things, and we've listened to their stories, and it's very sobering to hear what they've gone through. But the stories that mean the most are when people talk about how it's changed them and how they've grown and they've progressed, and not just focusing or dwelling on the negativity of the experience itself. So, Joanna, I think in regards to your question that you have here, an example, I've got an injury, set examples of how I managed to stay positive during the accident, healing process. I think it's a good story to put on your list of stories, but again, get them all out in front of you before you decide. And we'll get to that as we go through the brainstorming section that's coming up here in a minute.
Yes. So here's a sample of a little first paragraph for an essay before the coaching. So when I decided to study abroad this semester at sea, I envisioned myself hiking the Great Wall of China, skydiving over the Cape of South Africa, and gazing at the Taj Mahal at sunrise. What I was not prepared for were the unexpected moments I would share with the locals I met in each country, and the fact that several of these moments would completely alter my outlook on the world and my career path. I'd always known that I wanted to go into the medical field. So that's taking a lot of like semester at sea, hiking, skydiving, gazing, like that's different sections from that experience semester at sea, and it's kind of all over the place. So we want you to hone in on one of those specific moments and then kind of go into those strengths. So here's the after. I gazed out the window of the rockety bus and watched the red dirt road wind through the miles of lush green vegetation. That is the good imagery right there. My classmates and I were headed to an orphanage about an hour away from the capital city of Ghana in West Africa. I walked into the lobby of the orphanage and opened my backpack to distribute toys and school supplies to dozens of beaming children. I couldn't stop smiling as we played with the children, running back and forth, playing basketball, and watching them play with a yo-yo for the first time. See how that's so much imagery there and the specifics of that moment at the orphanage rather than listing moments that they had in that experience. This grabs the reader and really opens up to a good explanation of the strengths of they kind of adapted to a new place. They built trust with these children and they kind of worked hard in this experience.
For sure. So some of you may be thinking, well, I don't have an experience where I went to Ghana, right? Or maybe you've been in your own small little town, wherever you've grown up, and that's where basically all of your life has occurred. It does not matter where the story happened. It just matters that you are able to sell it and tell it effectively. So we're going to talk about kind of the process that we go through when we help applicants when we're brainstorming for their essays, okay? The principles and the processes that we're about to show you can be applied to any essay regardless of the specific length of the prompt or essay. And you'll have to adapt based on the circumstances, but the process doesn't change. It only expands or contracts based on the character count that we have.
So here are some brainstorming ideas to get you started in thinking about the process. I'm a go-getter for the bulleted list. This is a great way to start. Just kind of list everything out. Don't worry about the paragraphs. Don't worry about the format yet. Get story ideas out, strengths out, and any idea that you might want to use for the essay topic. And then there's also mind mapping. This is kind of like that bubble, like you have PT essay in the bubble, and then you can make spider webs and choose and figure out which way it can go and which topics will be the most catching. I also am a good advocate for 10-minute free write. This is kind of like word vomit on the page, but give yourself to write down all the things and don't worry about word count or character count. But then when you're done, read through and you can take out all the unnecessary things and you might have an idea ready to go for the first draft of the essay. Again, like we've already been preaching out, use stories to give your essay structure. So have the idea of knowing, okay, I want a story about that, like that really is my unique aspects, and a story about a client experience. Another good tip is talking it loud. Most of your phones have recording apps. Talk out loud and talk through ideas and then record it so you can go back and remember and think, oh yeah, wait, no, that was great. Let me start writing about that. Because sometimes writing, it gets in the way of things. So just talking it through can help those ideas come out.
Awesome. Okay, so we are going to take you all through the same brainstorming process that we take our clients through when we first start their PTCAS essay coaching. So this is literally what we do. If you take this exercise seriously, you're going to capture some of the ideas, and you will have a great jump start on being able to write your application essays, including your supplementals as well as your PTCAS. So we have step one right here. You want to write down why you really want to become a PT, okay? There's a bunch of different things that you could talk about here. How does PT allow you to help others and use an understanding of anatomy in a way that you can't in any other profession? You could also just give yourself some of these other questions. What are your professional or future goals? What patient populations do you want to work with? In what unique way will you serve this patient population? These are just some good ideas that are going to kind of help you have some guiding threads that you can weave throughout your essay. This isn't how you're going to start your essay necessarily. It's just a good place for us to start to kind of get an overview idea of the main things that attract you to the profession. Okay.
So step 2, kind of take an inventory of your greatest strengths. You'll have one bucket that has those hard character attributes, and you have a second bucket for people skills. So like hard character attributes could be perseverance, determination, attention to detail. And then people skills can be your empathy, compassion, the building of trust, teamwork, stuff like that. So make an inventory of all the strengths you have, and then you can kind of decide which ones are the ones you want to portray within your essay. Then we have step 3. This is where you'll take an inventory of your experiences that showcase those greatest strengths that you've chosen. You'll have your non-PT related experiences, which we like to call the origin story, but don't let the name fool you. It doesn't have to be exactly your origin and where you came from, but just an experience that doesn't necessarily connect right away to PT, but shows those attributes well that you want to provide for the essay. And then you have PT related experiences that are daily from the last 4 to 5 years of you working with clients to showcase those people skills. And make sure your stories focus on the why again. Like, why are you awesome, not other people? It's okay to talk about yourself. This is your time to talk about yourself.
Okay, so step number 4, we're going to tie it together. So we select one origin story from those list of experiences, and we're going to pick the experience that showcases the most strengths that are from our list. And then you're going to use this origin story. You want to include lots of imagery, emotion, detail to hook your reader early. And then you're going to choose your patient interaction story. This is experience that showcases, again, your strengths, use emotion, use imagery, help us root for you, help us have a reason to root for the patient. What are their goals? What are they focused on? Different things like that. And a lot of applicants will ask us, like, well, how am I going to tie these two stories together? It's very easy for us to be able to go through and say, like, the experiences that I gained in this origin story helped ultimately prepare me to work with patients. Something like that, right? Like, we don't need to overcomplicate it, but we get the maximum exposure in this essay when we give you an opportunity to talk about something outside of physical therapy that's going to be more memorable. And then, or the phrase I commonly use is, you want to bring them into your world and then project yourself into theirs, right? So you bring them into your world, your understanding, the strengths you've developed, and then you want to show them how who you are is going to be someone who's going to be an effective physical therapist. So that's kind of that experience there.
So we even give you a character count method to help you not stress too much about those character counts. So we break each essay down based on the character count and the content you want to share. And here's our example of kind of a guideline to follow. So your origin story should be around 1,000 to 1,200 characters. And then you have your origin story recap or summary, which is 500 to 800 characters. Then you have your patient interaction story, which will be, again, 1,000 to 1,200 characters. Then you have your patient interaction story recap, 500, 800 characters, and your conclusion, 1,000, 1,200 characters. So when you follow along those lines of character count, you will be within the 4,500 character count limit, including spaces. Now, this is just a general guideline. If you find yourself wanting to put a little bit more in the origin story, that's okay. That just means you'll have to take out of your story recap. But a little is like maybe a few 50 more characters, not going from 1,000 to 1,200 to 1,500, because then your origin story recap is very minimalized. And that's the area where you want to explain and kind of tie the strengths back to that story. So keep in mind of these character count suggestions, but don't let the character count drive you crazy when writing your essay.
Yeah, and I think that's spot on too, Jenna, for people who are here for supplemental essays, because you can have 500 character supplementals all the way up to 10,000 character supplementals, and it can be really overwhelming to decide, how am I going to navigate this type of a situation when I have all of these different amounts of characters. So that brings us to this next point here of most common supplemental essay prompts. We want to go through this and then talk about how you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time you're writing supplemental essays, okay? Because a lot of them have these similarities to them. So why do you want to attend our program? How will you contribute to our program? Questions about diversity, equity, and inclusion, or how are you prepared to work with people who are different from you? Explain how you know that PT is the career for you. What is important for us to know about you that may not be evident in your application? What makes you stand out? Why should we choose you? Other questions about resilience, adversity, receiving constructive feedback, sharing what happened and how you handled it. And then we'll also talk about the COVID-19 essay as well, because that's still out there on the application. Okay, so when we look here, why do you want to attend our program? You want to make sure that you are doing your homework and go beyond just location and cost of the program. What are the unique opportunities that the program provides you? Curriculum, clinical rotations, humanitarian trips, pro bono clinics, research opportunities, residency, specialty, different things like that. What really makes that program stand out and makes them different? And then you also can review their mission statement and the values that they have as a program. And you can share stories from your own personal experience that demonstrate you displaying those values that are important to the program. And you can mention, like, in your program's mission statement, it says that these things are important. Here's an example of me demonstrating those values and those the things from your mission statement. So that's why you want to attend our program. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. You want to focus on experiences where you've worked with people from diverse backgrounds. So make an inventory of these experiences. Talk about what you did in those experiences, how that helped change your perspective, changed your mindset, helped you gain different strengths, the ability to work with people from a variety of different backgrounds. And focus on showing instead of telling. We have a lot of applicants when it comes to these prompts that will start writing about what they would do or what they could do. And that's not going to do as much as you sharing what you have done in the past in order to successfully work with people who are different from you. Because let's face it, everyone is going to work with someone who is different from them, because everyone is different. Even if you have someone like Jenna, like her twin is still different than she is, right? And so, like, you need to be able to have this skill regardless of your personal background. So look at, maybe you've been involved in community service, humanitarian trips. Maybe you've been involved in like a service organization that reaches out to kids or reaches out to homeless people, like whatever it is, like any type of experience you have working with people who are different from you, from a variety of like beliefs, socioeconomic status, ethnicity, different things like that. Write about it and share how you successfully were able to make a positive impact on the lives of those people. And that will give people evidence and credence to believe that you can do that as a future physical therapist. All right, how do you know that PT is the career for you? So you want to go back and talk about the experiences, what you've done to vet this profession. For most people, they find out they want to be a physical therapist because of their observation and their patient interaction hours. That's when they see on a day in, day out basis how awesome and rewarding the profession is and how great it is to help patients achieve their goals and get back to doing the things that they love. So write about those experiences. If there's someone that really stands out, then write about a singular experience. If there's several experiences, list them out and then see how there's an opportunity for you to divide the characters to be able to move forward. Pre-PT club, you could talk about if there's guest speakers that came in, maybe someone showed a particular technique, different things like that. And for those of you who maybe, like, thankfully, this isn't too many places in the country right now, but if you've only been able to do research online about the profession of physical therapy, or maybe you've interviewed physical therapists because you haven't been able to get in and shadow, then talk about those experiences. Share everything that you know that you've done to get to know this profession and to decide that this is what you want to do for your career. Question from Hannah. Is it okay to go into the topic of working with patients in an outpatient clinic with poor or no income? Yes, absolutely. That's just fine. If you're in a part of town where you're serving low socioeconomic status patients, that's a perfect thing to talk about with DEI questions. You could talk about it with knowing that PT was the career for you, how PT, we work with people from newborn babies to people who are in their end stages of life to help improve the quality of life. And we work with a wide variety of diagnoses from cradle to grave. We have touch points all across the spectrum, and our profession is able to help people. So you could talk about that. And it also bridges income level as well. There's people who are very low socioeconomic status who need help with their movement and their function. And there's very wealthy people who need help with their movement and their function. And PT is able to address all of those needs. So yes, Hannah, you can talk about that. Okay, for why should we choose you, or what makes you stand out? You have to look at, okay, for this program, what things have I not currently talked about in my essays thus far? Now, we have to remember that each program only gets your PTCAS essay and then the supplemental essays that you submit to that program. We're going to talk about a technique that you can use called application essay stacking to help you cut down the amount of new content you have to write with your supplemental essays. But for this question of why should we choose you, what makes you stand out, you're going to go back and look at, okay, these are all the things I've already included in my essays so far. What is the next best available story or experience that I can share that showcases my strengths and showcases why I would be an asset to a DPT program? And this is why the process that we talked about with brainstorming, when you have all these things listed out, it's just a matter of picking the next best thing that's available. And you don't have to sit there and start from scratch. You just look at the stories, you look at the strengths that you want to showcase, and then boom, you tie those in to these experiences. You can identify areas of your application that you haven't already shared. You don't want to just keep beating the same drum over and over again. Something else that I talked about is you could go back into your experiences section of your PTCAS application and be able to review and say, okay, I have talked about these 2 experiences in my other essays, but I've got 8 more experiences that I haven't talked about. Go back and use what you've already filled out in your PTCAS application to help you guide your thought process to say, what else could I share in more detail that would allow me to stand out? When you only have 600 characters to talk about something, you don't get to flesh it out very much, and you could address it in more detail with other supplemental essay questions as well. And then just looking at your other life experiences, personal strengths, and attributes that belong to you that are uniquely yours. Okay, resilience, adversity, and constructive feedback. I'll take a drink real quick. Okay, focus on showcasing your strengths. And you guys are probably sick and tired of hearing that, but it is the underpinning of any successful application essay, okay? Be a victor, not a victim. This is very important. You want to make sure that if you had a difficult experience, try not to dwell on how difficult the experience was and focus more instead on how you were able to persevere and come through it and learn from it and become better as a result of that experience. Write objectively about what happened and then share what you did to respond. So you don't need to put all this flowery language and make it sound like a bigger deal than it actually was. Just, if you had a horrific car accident and you lost your parents in that accident, you want to say that, state that, and then just talk about and respond with like, this is how I overcame. This is what I did. And of course, there's going to be a lot of opportunity in those experiences to talk about like the emotions that you felt, the things that you had. When humans are able to empathize with other humans, we start to root for you because we're like, oh, that's really difficult. That's challenging. I hope they're able to come through this. And they root for you. So make sure you're using imagery and emotion in these essays as well. And the majority of your response should, again, focus on how you responded and overcame the obstacles, not on the obstacles themselves. Okay, COVID. So this goes back to the last prompt. You need to write objectively about what happened to you and then share what you did to respond to that. You only get 2,500 characters for the COVID essay, okay? Look at in each of the different categories that they list there, whether it's academically, personally, financially, employment-wise, whatever situations happen to you, list each of those categories and then make bullet points about how COVID impacted you. At this stage of the application, COVID doesn't have too much bearing, thank goodness, right? But for applicants in 2020, and they couldn't get any shadowing or observation hours, and they had to go all online with their classes, you better believe that that played an impact. If that changed your application experience, then write about it. You don't need to make it into this big sob story if it wasn't. But if there was an adverse, if COVID had an adverse impact on your application, write about it. Include it in your essay, share it with people, and give them an opportunity to put some context into your life and what you've gone through, and ultimately how you responded and how you overcome those obstacles. Okay, so here we go. Stacking supplemental essays. So programs don't see what you submit to other programs for their essays. So since many of the prompts between these different programs overlap, I'm thinking specifically about like diversity, equity, and inclusion questions, you absolutely can reuse this content in other essays, right? So if you have your essays, so if you write 2 to 3 of these essays, you can just start reusing materials. And before you know it, you can have a completed essay in like 5 minutes. You just change some phrasing. You may have to cut down on some of the characters. But overall, you're able, once you start writing a couple of these prompts, you've got supplemental essays ready to go that you can just pull out of other essays that you've completed for other programs. Please don't reuse material from your PTCAS essay. That'd be super embarrassing and awkward to talk about, okay? This is just, if I have program A and they have a supplemental essay that is the same as program B, but it's shorter characters, I'm just going to take stuff from this essay, cut down on characters, put it in program B, okay? Let's see here, a couple questions. Should you try to avoid talking about your time during COVID in your essay? Jen, I'd like some clarification on that. Are you talking about in your PTCAS essay or in the COVID essay? Okay. Let's see. Are we able to use the same COVID essay for the COVID part of PTCAS if it is a supplemental section for a specific school? I would say yes, because that experience isn't going to change drastically from one program to the next. What happened to you during COVID happened to you, period. So I don't know why a lot of programs are adding it in addition to where it's at on PTCAS. If you have other things that you want to talk about, then you could include it there. Let's see here, Luke, for the COVID essay, even if you feel that COVID has a large negative impact on your journey, should you still fill out if it hasn't, if you don't feel, is a chance to write more. Luke, again, like you can go back. If you go and you take an inventory of your experiences and COVID really hasn't had an impact on your application, like your schooling was the same, you were able to get all your observation hours, you didn't lose any income because you lost a job. Like if there was nothing that was done, you don't have to fill it out, right? But if there was an impact and it did cause an adverse effect on your life, you can include it in there. There's other things that people included about like being more isolated, not being able to be with their friends or their roommates as much, different things like that, and how that impacted them. You can include those things. So Jen's clarifying that she is referring to talking about COVID during your PTCAS essay. Jen, it's really hard to answer that because I don't personally know what happened to you in that experience. But if there was something that was particularly impactful, that was unique, like the thing that's kind of interesting about COVID is it happened to everybody. Like some people, like Luke was saying, were more affected or less affected than others, but it happened to everyone. And so it's not something that's currently like super prominent or relevant. But if you had something happen, like you lost your job, you had a family member pass away, and you had to completely overhaul your application situation, and PT was still an underpinning goal that you had this whole time, then maybe, yeah, that's a good thing to talk about. But it's, again, listing those experiences out, determining which ones showcase your greatest strengths. So I guess the answer to your question, Jen, is maybe. Maybe. It just depends on how you phrase it and how you go about it. Okay, so that's stacking supplemental essays. Whew. All right, so that was a lot, and we got it done in under an hour. Can you believe that? for the actual content portion. Okay, so if we look here, we're going to take a break and just soak in the information that we just blasted at you guys. Okay, you probably feel like this poor dog that's getting blasted by the fire hydrant here. Every single applicant who's worked with us has their own unique story. And I hope that today you come away with some ideas, some brainstorming of things that you can do to showcase that story in your application. Whether it's your PTCAS essay or your supplemental application essays, there is something unique for each and every person to be able to share. Okay. We oftentimes had applicants come to us, and the people that we're going to show you some of the faces of the people we've worked with over the past few years, that they come to us when they're feeling inadequate, fearful, doubtful, confused, concerned, anxious, uncertain, overwhelmed, or exhausted. And these feelings increase cortisol levels in your brain, which actually stifle the creative process and makes it more difficult for you to be able to write effectively and to be able to use more of that left brain creative side thinking, or right brain side thinking. When these applicants came to us, we gave them tools to transform their feelings into excitement, peace of mind, assurance, clarity, confidence, direction, and focus. And those feelings decrease your stress levels, minimize your cortisol levels, and increase your mind's ability to be more creative and to think about things outside of the box and to be less of a fight or flight response, more of a rest and digest. Let's think, let's be creative, let's build something here. And these are those people. Okay. We got applicants from all over the country, from all different backgrounds that came, and we were able to help them showcase their individual stories. And let me tell you, it's been awesome to work with applicants from all across the map, from every different socioeconomic status, from people who've attended universities that I've never heard of before, to people who've attended the biggest schools in the country. Regardless, this process works, and we are able to help these people to go and share their stories so they can be able to achieve their ultimate outcome, which is to get into physical therapy school. And their ultimate outcome is, more importantly, to become a future physical therapist. And you have your own unique story. You have something that you need to share with programs to help them know that you are an applicant that deserves to come to their program. You deserve one-on-one attention to help you discover what is unique and special about you. You deserve to have individualized coaching from coaches that have a collective 12 years of essay editing experience. You deserve to have peace of mind that your final draft of your essay has reached its full potential. And you deserve to get your PTCAS and other supplemental application essays done in less than a week. And yes, we can help you do that. If you go from no draft at all to done, we can do that in a week. If you follow our process and you go through the steps that we've gone through, there is always an opportunity to make sure we get that done. So this coaching package, this coaching offer that we wanted to share with you all, these are the key items that are included in the coaching package. 2 1-hour one-on-one coaching sessions. Other essay coaches, you're in a room full of other people and they're trying to talk at each one of you, but there's not that one-on-one connection and interaction. And we know how important that is when we're working with our patients, when I'm working with my patients as a physical therapist. You need to give them that one-on-one attention because they deserve that, and it gives you the best results or the best outcomes as far as that goes. And it's the same with essay coaching. When you're working one-on-one with us, we're able to help get your questions answered, help ask you the right questions that are going to ensure that we can draw out those things that are going to make your essay fantastic. There is these sessions are broken up into 2 periods. There's 30 minutes of editing and 30 minutes of a coaching call via Zoom or phone call, where we're actually talking with you and working together to get your essay improved. There's a 1-hour video course content. There's sample essays, self-evaluation worksheets, all these different things that you can use to help you brainstorm and get your ideas on paper. You'll be able to have answers to all your PTCAS and application-related questions. So once you get signed up, we're working with you on your essay. If you have questions about your application, we have our PTCAS checklist, which is your go-to place where you can go to. That's going to resolve 90 to 95% of your questions. But if you have questions that don't get answered from that, you can email me directly and be able to get those questions answered. I've been helping applicants apply for 10 years. I make the joke that I've applied to PT school thousands of times, right? Because I've worked with all these different applicants and helped them get into PT school, and I've learned a good amount about what to do and what not to do. So you can have those questions answered. In addition, you have application resources to help you study for the GRE If you still haven't sent out your reference requests, if you're still figuring out which programs you want to apply to, we have that. And resources to help you successfully transition from a pre-PT to an SPT to a DPT. For those of you who don't know, SPT is a student physical therapist. So as you get ready to go into your doctoral program, resources to help you make the jump from undergrad into a graduate level program, and then become a successful physical therapist. But let's also talk about the value that you get in addition to all the resources that are available to you in the coaching. You are going to avoid reapplication because applicants who work with us have a tremendously higher success rate of getting into PT school the first time than those who don't. You're going to save $700 in reapplication fees, right? You won't have to pay those PTCAS fees, and that's just PTCAS with applying to 10 programs. There's at least $3,000 in savings from not purchasing unnecessary textbooks, which includes the resources that we share with you of what you actually need to buy when you go to PT school. It's going to get you one step closer to that $60,000 to $90,000 starting DPT salary, help you maximize control of your time, your opportunities for employment, networking, and entrepreneurial pursuits, and be able to move forward with your life. Whatever your next steps are that you're really looking forward to, whether that's if you have a significant other that you're looking to settle down with and you want to get married and have a family, go for that. If you want to travel the world, if you want to go and do humanitarian trips and do philanthropic ventures as a physical therapist, if you want to travel the world, do travel PT, whatever it is that you want to do, that next step in your life, you can get closer to that by getting accepted to PT school this cycle by working with us. And then you get the feelings inside of knowing that you've accomplished your goals. You can increase your own confidence. Like getting into PT school is hard. It's a difficult thing to do. By doing that, you can have increased confidence in your ability to go out there and do things and make things happen. You also can silence your doubts and your doubters. You can have belonging in this community of future physical therapists, student physical therapists, and you can secure your future that you are going to be one step closer to being a doctor of physical therapy. Acceptance from others, but most importantly from yourself, that you have been able to do this. So Hannah is an applicant who's working with us. She is fantastic, and I'm just going to read what she just put in. Use these services offered. They will change your view completely on how the PTCAS application works and how to make you the best of the best. Take it from someone who is currently reapplying to DPT programs. Sean's coaching and experience and Jenna's editing and essay telling skills will change your PTCAS experience completely. There you go. That is exactly what we're talking about. We're just changing the way that you look at applying to PT school. So that way you can see things as they really are. Okay, so if you go on our website right now, you can purchase this essay coaching package for a one-time payment of $350 or 4 monthly installment payments of $87.50. But because you are here today, we have a personalized coaching offer just for you. And I just put up the promo here. You're going to use the promo code PREPT20 to get 20% off. That allows you to get a one-time payment of $280 or a $70 monthly installment payment plan over 4 months. And there's only 20 spots available. So you're going to want to act fast on these. And this offer is only good for the next 2 days. Okay. There's also significant discounts on additional coaching sessions and additional coaching products. So when the time comes for you to do your application essays, you're going to get 30% off the bat our application interviews package and different things like that. And you're also going to be able to get significant discounts on additional sessions if you're looking to get done with your PTCAS essay and your supplemental essays. And there is a 30-day, 100% money back guarantee. If you are not satisfied, you get your money back, no questions asked. Okay. So by getting signed up today, there's no risk. There's an opportunity for you to come learn what we have to share and offer. If it doesn't transform your way of thinking, transform your application, you can get your money back. Okay. So if you have questions, go ahead and let's get them done in the chat box. I also, if you have, if you would like to email us, if you have more specific questions, I'm going to put the email address to reach out to us specifically.
Yeah, so I see Ethan actually jotted down a question. He said, with scholarship essays, I remember trying to address each part of the prompt in the essay. Should we specifically address background, identity, interests, or talents in each section, or just imply? Wondering if the people reviewing usually have a rubric to objectively see that each applicant is hitting each part.
Okay, so remember trying to address each part. Each section or just imply. Scholarship essays, remember trying to address each part of the prompt in the essay. So I feel like as you go through, there's not really a rubric per se. Like each program is different in how they review the essays that are put in front of them. I feel like most of the time it's based off of, is your essay intriguing and engaging to the reader? That's the rubric. That's what matters. Because a lot of the times the people who are reviewing these essays, it may be the admissions committee, but it also may be people who are coming in for interviews. That's how I was able to review application essays. And as I was reviewing those essays, of the 17 essays that I read, so I quickly perused through, the ones that I was not intrigued by, I didn't continue reading. And there were 2 of the 17 essays that I read that actually made me want to read the whole thing. So I think, Ethan, when you're looking at it from that perspective of, is there a rubric? Maybe. There are programs that I feel like what they do more specifically is they have criteria that they list that they say, this is how we're going to overall review the applicant. They will, give you points for your GPA, your GRE, your observation hours. They may give you points for your application essay. Every program is different with how they do that. And so because the essay prompts themselves, they may do that for the supplemental application essays. But the process that we're using in the system that we use is hitting all of those things. Your background, your identity, your interest, your talents. You're going to list those, right? And if you're looking at it more specifically, like AI is going through and combing through the essay to see if you're saying those words specifically, I don't think so, but I can't say for sure because every program is different. In general, based on the feedback we get from applicants who are getting in year after year, it's based off of, is your essay interesting and engaging? Okay. Michael, would you consider not worth talking about? What would you consider not worth talking about in the COVID essay? Oh, Michael, that's a good question. I think there are a lot of things that applicants may talk about. Like, again, one that is people talk about a lot, and I don't know about you, but I don't know if I would include this in an application essay that I choose willingly to write, right? They say, I gained a bunch of weight, I was horrible with online schooling, and I was super depressed. Maybe that's true, but you get to choose what you put in this essay, and you don't have to talk about that. So that's all I'm saying is just be thoughtful and make sure the things that you're including in the essay focus on how you are a victor, not a victim, and how you've grown and progressed. Did a lot of people gain a bunch of weight and have mental health issues during COVID? Absolutely. That was a real thing. Could you maybe say that in a sentence of, I lost track of some of the lifestyle choices I was making, and I saw that I needed to get back on track with exercising more consistently, getting more consistent sleep, spending time outside, eating healthy, all those things. You can talk about how it was a refining experience for you and it helped you sharpen your idea of what you need to do to be successful. Absolutely. You can frame it from that perspective. But I feel like a lot of applicants, because they think about COVID and they think about lockdown and they just get inherently depressed, which you should. It was awful times, horrible. Let's never repeat that again. They just go into this dark place, but make it optimistic, make it upbeat. Okay. All right. Hannah, if I have the essay coaching package already and I'm in the process of writing PTCAS essay, will you also look at my supplemental essays or how to get services for my supplementals? So Hannah, for the people, the coaching package we offer today is for people who aren't signed up currently for essay coaching. Okay. If you are signed up, you are just going to talk with Jenna or shoot an email to me at info@physicaltherapyapplicationcoach.com. We'll talk about your supplemental essays. We'll see how many essays you have. what the character counts are for those essays, and if there are any crossovers between the prompts, and then we can help you decide how many additional hours of coaching we need to get. Good question, though. And if you are a repeat customer or continuing customer and you've got supplementals you want to knock out, highly recommend that you do that, because supplemental application essays can get extremely confusing and overwhelming, and we can help you synthesize it and help you see. We just have to answer a couple questions, and then a bunch of dominoes start falling for these other supplementals. Okay, let's see here. Ethan, essay question. You want to take that one, Jenna, for a second? I'm going to rest my voice for a bit.
So you're asking if you have a lot of connected volunteering experiences bridging into one theme, but they are different nonetheless. Could I split my non-PT origin story into several connected stories within the same theme? So it's kind of tricky, because I understand what you're kind of asking and how you want to kind of just show all your experiences, but that might be too much on the reader, that they get confused onto where everything is lining up. So I would suggest really because if they're all in the same theme, then they all share that strength that you really want to portray. So I would choose the one that was maybe the most closest to you and use that to grab your reader. And you can even have a sentence that say, I had many moments like this that I was able to strengthen or to show my whatever strength you want to portray. Does that make sense? We just don't want to overwhelm the reader with so many different stories. It works better to just signify one story, but a simple sentence of, I've done this many times, will then show that you are, it wasn't a one-time thing, but you've done it many times and are accustomed to it, I guess. That makes sense, Ethan?
I'll give you an example for Jenna's question that comes up often in essays like this. So we're going to say these are all pseudonyms for different patients we're working with. And then they're going to also have a name for a physical therapist. So we're going to have 4 different characters. We're going to have Ethan, Sam, Sarah, and Kyle. Okay? Can you imagine in a paragraph trying to keep all of that straight, who's doing what and where that applies? It's just too confusing. There's too much name dropping. And for 4,500 characters, we don't have that much time to build a narrative around that. There is a technique that we use, and I've mentioned this a couple of times to Jenna, where if you have a consistent experience or you have a theme of several different experiences, you can create what's called a mascot patient. And basically, no one's going to know if all of these experiences you've had, yes, they are your experiences, but you could create a patient that is kind of a conglomeration of several experiences. And then you make them a mascot patient. And you're talking about this encounter with this mascot patient, and it includes several of those different encounters with other patients that are similar. That's what I would do, Ethan, if you really feel like you've got a lot you want to talk about. I think it's just like Jenna's saying, avoid the temptation to feel like you have to put more and more and more in your PTCAS essay, because it needs to be focused and readable and digestible. It shouldn't read like a rehashing of your resume. Okay, let's see Joanna.
Yeah, she has a good one.
Take it away, Jenna.
I think that is a great thing to do. So Joanna asks, if you're not good at recognizing any strengths, who should you talk to, or should you ask your close friends, peers, and family or coworkers to give their perspective? Because it's hard to brag about yourself. I totally understand that. I've been told by many of my family members, when I'm writing, that I need to be more open about myself, and brag. You need to, because that's what this essay is all about. So Joanna, I would highly suggest talking to your friends, talking to your family, your coworkers, and see what they think, and align it with yourself. And know that if you're if you say, oh, I don't know, then it is it. If you are questioning it, it is it, because you feel like it's too much for you, but that means that you actually do it. People say I'm very friendly, but when I'm with my family, sometimes I'm like, oh God, no, I'm not friendly. I can be a little sassy. But I am friendly when I'm meeting new people because I want them to feel safe with me. So ask around, but don't deny what people are saying about you. Accept it and run with it and see and think. Even ask about experiences like, well, when did I show this or when did I do this? And then that can give you ideas for your stories.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there, Jenna, with if you are having a hard time, I'm just going to add this. If you have a hard time believing it, you're going to have a hard time selling it. So there comes a point for everybody, like there's a difference between bragging about yourself and telling the truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think applicants, like when you're writing the story does the heavy lifting for you. You just write what you did, and then story does the bragging. It's not like you're having to say like, I am the most compassionate person in the world. Like, A, there's no way you can know that. And B, like, show me how you're compassionate, and then I will believe it as a reader. So it's not so much about bragging, but even in our worksheets that we give you, that's one of the questions that we ask. Like, what are the attributes that your friends and your family members who know you best, what would they say are your greatest strengths or your greatest abilities? That's totally fine to include that. But at some point, you are going to need to internalize it and believe it yourself so you can write about it confidently. And so when you go to interviews, you can have that be something that you can talk about. Because if you talk about you're someone who's very adaptable and you're very confident and you can persevere, and then you go to an interview and you're like a very shy sheep, it's not matching. There's that dissonance between those two ideas of who you say you are versus who you are. And I think for people who have a hard time talking about themselves, it's mostly the fact they have a hard time believing that they are unique or different compared to other people, right? So that's in general how I would go about it. Is do what Jenna says, get the insight and the perspectives of people, but at some point you got to say, yeah, you know what, I do demonstrate that, or I am that kind of a person. So that way, when it comes time for interviews or when you go to a program, you can be the same person that you sold yourself to be. Good question. I was just checking. We got several people signing up. So if you're thinking about it already, please go ahead and jump on and take advantage of these. If you need to think about it, we understand you got a couple days, but let's make the most of it. Let's get it done. Okay, what other questions do you guys have? Probably got another 2 minutes. You're welcome, Joanna. No problem. We're excited to work with you. Joanna signed up earlier this morning, so we're excited to work with her. Anybody else? Bueller. Again, you can watch the replay, go back, look over those things. If you've had a tug on your heart or your mind to go ahead and get signed up, I recommend that you go ahead and do it. Again, you got that 30-day money-back guarantee, and we've got options that make it affordable for everybody. Ethan, how would you go about setting tension in your essay? Each person has had difficulties in your life, but might not feel like they always connect with PT specifically. Searching for that authenticity. Stephanie, you're very welcome. Very welcome. Ethan, as far as that's concerned, remember what we talked about in the recipe for any good, successful essay is that you have to introduce a conflict. Okay. So the conflict is any problem that you have. That's going to set the tension, and that's going to lead to some difficulty that you have to overcome. Even if it doesn't connect directly to physical therapy, it can showcase strengths. And again, if you have an example that is related to physical therapy, that's great. That's fine. But you don't have to always have them related to physical therapy. Look at you are more than just someone who is a pre-PT. You've had other experiences that have built who you are as a person. And that's going to be a lot more memorable than your entire essay just talking about physical therapy, right? That's ultimately what I think it comes down to, is making sure that you're giving people the maximum opportunity to see who you are as a whole, and not just talking about like, this is a small sliver of my life that has to do with physical therapy, and this is all you get to know about me as an applicant. I feel like you're really underselling yourself at that point in time. Anybody else? Ethan, great questions. Is your twin as good at asking questions as you are? That is the question. I hope so. Did you say, Ethan, that your twin is also going into physical therapy, or are you guys doing different things? Just personal curiosity here. Haha. He's in this call. Where is he? You're getting showed up. Oh, man.
I'm actually his twin. Oh, Luke already.
Luke. Okay. That's great. Luke and Ethan. That's awesome. That's awesome. Are you guys, I hope do you want to go to the same schools? If so, that'd be cool. He's got better questions. Hey, Luke, you asked some good stuff too. I just didn't see the whole last name, but yes, you've been engaged. Good job. Awesome. Okay, well, thank you guys so much. Thank you to Ethan and Luke for being our twin representatives here. That's one of the difficulties in essay writing, is having a lot of shared experiences. You do, but you have a lot of different experiences too. Like, even, and Jenna can talk about this, like, you have there's a lot of similarities, and pre-PTs have a lot of similarities with other pre-PTs, but what is different is the fact that you have your own unique experiences as well. You've talked with people, you've gone on experiences, you've done things that are different than others, right? Okay. Tanner, how would you go about writing your origin story if it was an injury that created your interest in learning about the body? I know you mentioned not talking about injury. Tanner, that is a great question. What would you do, Jenna? How would you handle that? And then I'll add my 2 cents.
So again, we said you want to kind of stay clear of injury, but if that had such an impact on you and where you are in your life, like, then go for it. I would suggest honing in on that accident or whatever, how you got the injury, and through any healing or even through that moment, what made that clarity for you. And again, like your origin story, Sean already talked about, doesn't have to relate back to PT, but it could be that leading factor into a nice transition into your PT story as well. So you can talk about that injury and then make sure those strengths are well known. And then your ending line could be like, this was the thing that sparked my interest in the human body, which led me to help patients like whoever that patient is. And then that's your transition into that patient story.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, I think going along with what Jen is saying is you have to, my question is, why are you sharing that experience? And from your question, it sounds like you're sharing it because it made you interested in the human body, right? The interest in the human body itself is not going to differentiate you very much as an applicant. I'm just going to tell you that right now, Tanner. So it's a good thing to have. You should be curious about the human body. It's at this point when you're applying to PT school, it should be a given for 3 things. You want to be a physical therapist. You enjoy working with humans, okay? And number 3 is you are interested in the human body. That's a given when you apply to PT school. Assume those things are already established. Now, talk about something else in addition to that, okay? Because if you're going to spend an entire chunk of characters in your essay talking about how I had an injury, it really made me want to learn about physical therapy, and as a result of that, I then went on and I decided that I was going to pursue this profession. That's already a given. We already know that you should already have an interest in that. So if you want to talk about your injury, again, we could talk about it. You can put it on your list of experiences, but I would just list it there. Put it as like a you could put it as a PT experience, put it as like an origin story experience. And then what are the strengths that you demonstrated in that experience? What did you do? What did you learn? What occurred that made a difference in your life as far as that goes? And then go from there. That's all you can do. So good question. Luke, both applying to NAU. Oh my gosh. We have Ethan and Luke, both at NAU. We're going to hang out. We're going to have a good time. No problem. We're excited to be able to share this information with you guys. Thank you so much. Again, we've had several other people already just sign up again in the last few minutes. So spots are limited. Make sure you take advantage of this opportunity. Thank you guys so much. I'll also put that got blown down there. But if you have questions, you can always email us at info@physicaltherapyapplicationcoach. Follow us on Instagram if you don't already. Our handle is @PTCAS on Instagram, and most of you, I think, follow us. I recognize a lot of these names. So thank you guys so much. Have an awesome rest of your day. Thank you to all of you. We're excited to work with those of you who have signed up to help you transform your application essays. And you know what? If down the road you still have questions about your essays, don't hesitate to reach out. Okay, we're always happy and transparent to reach out with you guys. Thanks so much. Have an awesome rest of your day. Take care.